This is an amazing place of love, recognition, affirmation. It's powerful. Community is everything to me. So I feel like I'm just going to move here. Okay, just kidding. I'm not going to do that. I have my own community back in Texas. So the thing that's about to happen in this service, it's called by many names. In some traditions, it's called the homily. In some, it's called the sermon. Some places, it's called the talk. Some, they call it the message. Other places call it the lesson. I don't know, but I'm just going to tell you that I'm going to preach. And if you came from a background like I came from, preaching usually meant condemning, criticizing, that kind of stuff. That's not what I mean by it. Preaching is about exhorting. It's about calling you to the truth of who you are, inspiring you, hopefully, to step into that which you already know you are, but we're a little bit scared to try. So that's the kind of preaching I'm going to be doing today. Are y'all open for that? Yes. So that's what's happening up here. Now, what's happening out here is that I'm going to ask you to listen with your whole being. I'm going to ask you to listen with your mind, which is the center of wisdom and understanding. I'm going to ask you to listen with your heart, which is the emotional center. And the emotions are what power our decisions. It's what helps us ground into reality. Our heart is incredibly important in this. So I'm going to ask you to listen with your mind and your heart and also your soul. What I call the soul it's the individualized expression of the one eternal life. And it is that piece of us that knows our purpose, that recognizes, it's like a sort of a metal detector. When we come across truth, it rings like a bell. So I'm going to invite you to listen with your heart, your mind, and your soul. So repeat after me if you would. I am listening.
I am listening.
I am open.
I am open.
I am receptive.
I am receptive.
I am ready to receive the truth.
I am ready to receive the truth.
Thank you. So, we're going to start with the definition. Today's theme is generosity. It's one of my favorite words. It's a big, fat, generous word, don't you think? So I thought I would just start by telling you what the dictionary says it means. Generosity is readiness or liberality in giving. It is the freedom from meanness or smallness of mind or character. It's about largeness, fullness, amplitude. Generosity. We are here today to discuss how we can be generous. My talk title, sermon title, homily title, message title, lesson title is You Can Afford to Be Generous. And then I thought, well, I should make it about me. I can afford to be generous. But then remember, no, I'm preaching. So you can afford to be generous. How can you afford it? It means that you're giving from a plenitude. You're giving from plenty. You've got enough, so I can afford to give. I can give. This afternoon, I'm going to be teaching from Eric Butterworth's book, as Marty talked about, Spiritual Economics. And it's a wonderful book. It's a classic of New Thought understanding of teaching around abundance and prosperity. And Butterworth is so clear that this is more than money. When he talks about tithing, he talks about the whole tithe. He says if we're just giving 10% of our money and we're not giving anywhere else in our lives, it doesn't work. That we are meant to give ourselves into our world in all areas. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the whole experience of abundance, the whole experience of giving, and the whole experience of receiving. That's what we're about today. So, as Marty said, if you had other plans this afternoon, you're invited to change them now. And come. And he said it in the first service. He didn't say it the second. I'm going to say it now. That lunch is provided for those who are going to take the workshop. The rest of you have to go get your own damn lunch. So that might motivate some of you. But this is our nature. This is who we are. We are big, full, powerful beings. Hafiz, the Sufi master, says it this way. You are the sun in drag. You are God hiding from yourself. Remove all the mine, that is the veil. Remove all the mine, that is the veil. Remove all the mine. That is the veil. Why ever worry about anything? Listen to what your friend Hafiz knows for certain. The appearance of this world is a Magi's brilliant trick, though its affairs are nothing into nothing. But you are a divine elephant with amnesia trying to live in an anthole. sweetheart, oh, sweetheart, you are God in drag. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. In case you don't know, Sufism is the mystical branch of Islam. And there's this beautiful understanding of one reality, of oneness. That's what mysticism in all traditions means. It means an understanding of our oneness with divine reality. And the Sufis teach that and practice that. It's beautiful. And Daniel Ladinsky is the translator from that into English. It was originally written in Persian, but evidently he captured that kind of irreverence, rock star sensibility that Hafiz was known for. That just irreverent, you are a divine elephant with amnesia. You've forgotten and you're trying to live in a little tiny life that was not meant for you. Emerson says it this way: the fact that I am here shows me that the soul had need of an organ. Shall I not assume the post? The fact that you're here, you see, God does not make mistakes. The universe is complete and perfect in its balance, everything where it should be. You being here is necessary for the wholeness. And you can't do anything to not be needed and a perfect expression of God. But what you can do is hide it and limit it and not give it. But you can afford to be generous. I know who you are. There are false beliefs. That's what we're really going to be doing some work this afternoon on bringing those false beliefs, which show up as our fears, bring them into the surface so we can see them and discard them and live who we truly are. Our false beliefs are formed by a child's mind in response to an adult situation. Things happen in our families, in our world, where we make up an idea about this is the way I have to be to get through the world. And it's wrong. It's false. But we think it's true, so we live that. We think we're these small little creatures who are meant to live these small little lives. You see your problem? Do you see it now? You have an identity crisis. That's the problem. There's a solution. It's found in this beautiful center. It's found in many traditions. But the solution to our identity crisis is to go to source. To go to who we truly are. There is a tendency in our species that male and female, I love polarity, not duality, but polarity is really beautiful. And I was telling Sally before the service, in certain situations, I very consciously work with my masculine and feminine energy. That I want to be very directive and clear, and I also want to be loving, supporting, and listening. And I work very consciously with that. But that polarity of masculine and feminine has shown up biologically. Did you notice? We're mostly men and women. Now, there are people that are transgendered, intergendered, and that's all part of the beautiful spectrum. But most of us are either guys or gals. And there is a tendency to identify, men tend to identify with accomplishment. Women tend to identify with relationship. And my friend Peter Welda says that actually it's not about that, but what it is that men are single-focused and women are laterally focused. Coming from how many hundreds of thousands of years as our clans and family groups were out on the savannah trying to survive, the men would hunt and stalk and go kill what needed to be bring it back. Whereas the women needed to see which plants were edible, where the kids were, where mom and grandma were. It was all this need to be aware of many things. So our legacy there is that women tend to identify as mom, sister, friend, right? Men tend to identify as job title, accomplishment. And there's nothing wrong with expressing ourselves as those things. And the truth is, we all do all of that, but this is just kind of general. I'm just pointing out these differences so we can begin to understand that we have a tendency to see ourselves as sometimes a really great thing, but it's limited. And what we're invited to do instead is to take our identity into divine reality. Always, that is our work in spiritual learning and evolution, is to take our identity deeper into God. That's what we're here to do. When we deal with the level of the condition, at the level of the condition, it's like combing your hair in the mirror. I mean, like combing the mirror itself. It doesn't work. What we have to do instead is come back to cause. There is a beautiful... I love Bible, and if you're allergic to it, I apologize. I'm going to invite you to get over it. We do honor all paths, all faiths, but the one that I am most familiar with is the Christian path. That's what I grew up in, and I've healed my allergies. So there you go. This comes, now Paul and I still fight sometimes, the Apostle Paul. Like, what do you mean, women shall keep silent in the church? What? What? But anyway, that's not the scripture I'm about to read. So this is from 1 Corinthians chapter 3. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And we all, who with unveiled faces contemplate the Lord's glory, are being transformed into this image with ever-increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is Spirit. Let me break this down for you. There is an ultimate reality that is spiritual. In New Thought, we don't actually teach that the physical world is illusion, as some teachings do. We teach that it's the physical manifest body of God, but it's all temporary. All form passes away. The eternal, unchanging reality is spiritual. And this is what Paul is saying. God is spirit. And that's where freedom lies. And when we, I love this, with unveiled faces, remember what Hafiz said the veil is? The mine. The grasping, the acquiring. That's the mind. That's the separation of us and the ultimate reality. But when we unveil our faces and contemplate God, contemplate ultimate reality, contemplate truth, when we get in touch with that, we become transformed day by day, meditation by meditation, prayer by prayer, glory unto glory. This is our work. The psalmist says it this way, delight in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Our tendency, the egoic, human go-getter, sees something, I'm going to go get it. I'm going to work for it. I'm going to accomplish it. I'm going to make it happen. And we do that. And there's a time and a space for that. But if that is the focus of our giving and receiving, it becomes empty. And it blocks something truly beautiful. This giving and receiving, we actually need new words. I understand there is a polarity here of giving and receiving, but it's one thing. This became really clear to me. I have a little girl in my life. My best friend and her wife adopted this beautiful little child, and they asked me to be daddy. So she's not mine by biology or legality, but I'll be the one that walks her down the aisle, and I'm the only one that she calls daddy. And I love this child, believe me. When she was about 6 months old, I was holding her, and she became fascinated, utterly fascinated with my left nostril, and was just exploring. And Chris, my best friend, took a picture, and I have this picture, and I mean, our eyes are locked, although she's kind of into my nose, but anyway. And I was looking at that picture, and I thought, who is giving and who is receiving there? That is a meaningless question. We were in the action of love, in the presence of love, together, creating it, experiencing it in the same moment. This is the way giving and receiving works in a spiritual reality. And when we, instead of focusing on the getting, on the thing, on the, whatever it is, for me it's usually electronics, but whatever that thing out there is, when we, instead of focusing on the thing, we turn to the spiritual reality. What is my life seeking to be? What does it feel like to be Michael Gott, spiritual man? What does that feel like? Contemplating spiritual reality, then I become transformed and the conditions realign. And the desires of my heart are granted. Another statement attributed to Jesus, it is the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. We have this idea, this old withholding, judging God. That's not what we teach here. What we teach is the ultimate reality, which its only thing it does is love. It loves. It gives. Ernest Holmes described love as the self-givingness of God into its creation. It loves into form, out of form. And you are it. You are the way it's expressing as you. Shall you not assume the post and experience your life the way you're meant to experience, which is abundantly, full, your desires met? But why don't we? Because we don't believe we're worthy. Because we don't believe that God really wants us to have it. So we have these false beliefs that limit us. A few years ago, I had this beautiful little niece. Her name is Riley J. I'm convinced she has to be a country singer. Please welcome to the Grand Ole Opry stage, Miss Riley J. Gott. Do you hear it? Isn't that great? But she is an amazing child. She just turned 5, and my brother and his wife and their other kids were visiting me this summer, and I got to celebrate a 5-year-old birthday party. It was great. We had a lot of fun. But she was born with a cleft palate, and the first few months of her life, there were a lot of procedures and surgery and doctors and a lot of pain, and it was hard. And she's gorgeous. I mean, it really is amazing what they're doing now with these doctors, what they do. It's incredible. But at 1.5 years is when I remember my mom was having her first retirement party, and we were there. And Riley at 18 months she was a Velcro kid with her mom. I mean, just right there, very shy. I'm sure it's probably because of all the trauma that she had gone through. So she wouldn't, the rest of my nieces and nephews just loved to latch on to me, but she was being very, very shy with me. So I didn't get a lot of close interaction, but I watched her. I just loved watching who this little being is. And you can tell at 18 months who they are. You can tell at 3 months. But I watched her, and I watched her with her mom, who she loved, and her mom loved her. And one time, she comes up to her mother, my sister-in-law Jenny, and I think Jenny had a bottle of water, and Riley just goes, and of course, Jenny gave her the drink, and I remembered thinking, how pure, how beautiful, to just be so in touch with her desire and so sure that her mom would give her what was wanted. I thought, what if I could be that way with God? What if I could come to God with full expectation that it is the Father, the Mother's good pleasure to give me the kingdom? And I could just say, I want my finances to reflect my spiritual integrity. I want a relationship where I am met and loved and respected. I want a community that holds me and loves me and sees the truth of my being. I want. We've been taught that the desire is egoic and earthly. And I'm telling you that beneath the ego's desire for significance and safety, there is a soul's desire to experience and express. To experience and express love as particularly as only you can. I want to feel my life fulfilled. I invite you to try it. It feels really good. Go ahead. I want. Yeah, a couple of people are doing the double-handed. I love it. That's great. My homework assignment for you this week is to get in touch with your desire. What is it that seeks to be born and experienced and expressed through you? And ask. Jesus also said, you have not because you ask not. And think of my little Riley J. So some of you are only here to hear the story of how Marty and I met in a bar. So just know this. When you know who you are, you're open to receive the gifts of your being, and you're more than willing to give. You can afford to be generous. You can afford to be generous. I was 26 or 27 years old, struggling, starving artist. He nailed it perfectly. And I had a few months earlier, I had begun to make a living, sort of, as a musician. I was singing in a little piano bar in Dallas, Texas called Michael's. And one night, this handsome man came in, and he was listening to my music, and I don't know if we made a request or not, I don't remember, but I could tell he was enjoying the music, and then on my break, he comes up to me, and he puts a $5 bill in my tip jar, and I thought, he's going to ask me out. And instead, he asked me to sing in his church. And I thought, do you know where you are? I thought, what kind of a minister goes to a gay piano bar in Dallas, Texas, and looks for people to sing at his church? And then I thought, that's my kind of church. And so he offered me a date. He said, we pay $75. I said, I'm there. And what Marty didn't know until I just shared this part of the story this earlier, I hadn't had a drink yet at 10 o'clock in the morning, and so my hands were shaking. My life was not working real well when I got here. But I sang Somewhere from West Side Story. And I knew someday, somehow, there's a place for me. And I sang What a Wonderful World. Yeah, I remember those. Those are the songs I sang. And yeah, I was a mess, let me just say it. But there was a light in me that Marty saw. And he made a space for it. And I listened to his talk because I had been done with church. I grew up very fundamentalist, and I was wounded. I was wounded by some of the teachings of the church I grew up in. I was not only was I not affirmed, I was told that I was completely unworthy of the experience of being in community and with God. And so I was listening, ready to run out the door, but the check cashed, so I And what I heard from Marty instead was a message of possibility, a message of affirmation, and a message of transformation. So I stayed. Over the next few years, I began to get in touch with some of those limiting beliefs I carried. Found my way to some rooms that had bad coffee and 12 steps. And over the years, as I've done this work, realizing where I'm still that divine elephant with amnesia, realizing where I'm still trying to live in an anthole, and I began to step into more and more of who I am, who I came here to be, I've discovered that I can afford to be generous. I have been given so much. Thank you, Reverend Marty Bacher, for giving me this teaching, which I now give to you in a little bit today. And you have the opportunity to give to others who come after you. That's why we do this thing. You know, I know that Marty doesn't talk about money every week, but there comes a time of the year that the church has to have an adult conversation about finances. And this is the way we do it. And we're just simply asking you, would you be willing? Would you be willing to make sure that this is here for the person like Michael Gott, poor drunk Michael Gott back in those days, would be able to come in and have something that would transform their lives? Do you want it to be here for you so you can continue to do this work of spiritual revelation and transformation? You have been given so much. You can afford to be generous. I invite you to go within with me. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, thy kingdom come through me forever. Amen. On earth as it is in heaven, thy will be through me. In this moment, I open myself to allow the divine to reveal itself in me. I let go of anything which is holding me back from the pure expression and experience of God's love. The one life, the one presence, the one love, the one power, seeking to reveal more and more of its glory in me, in you. And so this is simply a prayer of allowing. I allow my fears to be put aside. I allow my faith to make these decisions for how I am to live. I allow myself to feel. I allow myself to even reveal my mistakes. We are all perfectly imperfect. But our wholeness, our perfection is so great that it encompasses all. And it is through those weaknesses, through those vulnerabilities, that God's true strength is now revealed. So I allow it to have its way in me. I surrender. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done. Thy kingdom come through me. Thy will be done. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done through me. Through me. Through me. I allow the love of God to move through me as me now. And so it is.